What's up, guys? In today's episode, we talk with Zack Jackson, who is the owner, founder, and CEO of Impact Roofing. Zack actually has been involved in the roofing industry and construction industry for quite a while, and he's felt it was time to start his own brand here in Tampa Bay through Impact Roofing. So we get to hear about his journey, how he ultimately decided to build this, and what type of business he's trying to build in the roofing industry. Hope you enjoy. Hey, Zack, thanks for joining our podcast today, man.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. So tell everybody, what do you do?
Well, I am a state certified roofing contractor. I have a background in home remodeling sales for the last 7 or 8 years. Started in the window industry and then moved into roofing for the last 4 or 5 years. I opened my business back in November when I got my license, shortly after the storms, consequently. And, I've been running other companies before mine, so I felt like, once I had enough experience, felt comfortable to take the state test and get licensed and start running my own business, and have been off to the races ever since. And I still do windows with my father-in-law as well. He's got his own window company in Port Richey, and so it's a great niche to be able to offer, a roof along with windows and doors. So it's try to be a one-stop shop for a lot of exterior remodeling.
Let's talk about some of your expertise with the jobs that you've had. Like, what were you doing for the last 10 years?
Yeah, so I started, like I said, in the window industry, mainly with sales for a large remodeling company, which was a really good company to start out with because they showed you how at least the work and even the sales process should be done in a home. So I got really good training and a lot of really good experience in the home remodeling field and getting comfortable meeting with a new person, new homeowners every single day. And that transitioned into me just not enjoying the type of selling that I was doing with that company. And so I had the opportunity to work with a buddy of mine who was with a local roofing contractor, and having a friend there, met the owner, and it seemed like a good fit, and it was for a good long time. Unfortunately, like a lot of roofing companies, the ownership leadership was not the best, and so that transitioned into another family friend of mine who was my father-in-law's friend, who was starting up his roofing company, and he needed somebody to kind of run the day-to-day for him, which is a great opportunity for me because I now had the sales experience with windows and with roofing, and now I was going to jump into more of the production side of it. And for the last 2 years, I've really spent a lot more time, just as much time selling in production as well, ordering, scheduling, deliveries, follow-ups, all the production side of everything. So, essentially I had the reins to really be running a company for the last 2 years. And then once I got enough experience, I was like, hey, let me just do this myself. And that's when I registered take my state license and passed it, did really well on my first try for both of them. And, with the networking groups that I was in, it was such an easy transition. I was able to really have a few jobs before I even had my license. And so I just try to focus on doing things the right way because I had really good experience in seeing how things should be done over the last couple of years. And now that I have full control over it, I love being able to handle every aspect from start to finish.
So you basically went from salesman to supervisor.
Correct.
Did you kind of know the process of building roofs, doing window installation, all that jazz before you became a supervisor, or when did you kind of learn that process?
It was kind of a, learning in the progress, So with roofing, the first company with the windows, it was just sales. They really didn't oversee. They taught you about the install, but we weren't installing and we weren't on job sites. Then in the roofing side, with the first company I was with, I was able to get on site a little bit more, talk to the crew, see how things were done, and learn from my coworkers too, who had been doing it even a little bit longer than I had, on top of your own research a little bit. So by the time I went to the second roofing company that I was with, I had a pretty good idea of how everything was supposed to be done and run. And then with the last 2 years of the experience that I've had, that's been the, really running into problems, figuring out how to solve these very unique problems. And I've been so lucky to be able to work with, a primary crew that really takes pride in what they do and does things the right way. Because you can have anybody that has a license, and that license holder 9 times out of 10 is not the one on your roof doing the work. They're relying on either their employees or a crew that they have. And the important part is having a quality crew, because they're really the ones that are there and making judgment calls on things like rotten wood and flashings and fasteners and all this stuff that a business owner can't oversee. So I was able to develop that relationship with that crew and been able to bring them along with me to do, work with me. And that's really the most important part, is the communication between your crew and your expectations, whether it comes to technical stuff all the way down to cleanliness.
What would you say is the reason you wanted to truly start your own brand? What control did you want to have?
Well, I'm totally honest. I didn't. I had for the longest time. I was like, man, I would just want to be the most effective sales employee, salesperson that I can.
You want to be the
maybe
number two man.
Yeah. I didn't. Well, mainly because of the liability, and everybody understands that. Like, having the liability, especially of a roofing company, can be a lot, and that's just a lot to think about, right? And my transition from my last company to my company was a little unexpected, but also in great timing too, just the way that it happened. And so it was kind of like, hey, this is happening. You step into it. What's the worst that can happen, right? And so I didn't always want to be an owner, but then I had been a little resentful over the last maybe 6 months prior to me starting my company, because I was doing 90% of the work of every single job and I was getting a third of the profit, right? And that just didn't add up to me. And there were decisions that I couldn't make unilaterally that hindered our growth. And so I was like, man, if I can just make all these decisions, then I can live with the consequences, whether they're right or wrong. But what I can't do is sit around and let somebody else make these decisions for me. And that was probably the main motivator to be like, okay, let's give this a shot and see how it goes. And I'm not perfect, but having the final say is very empowering, and it makes you think. It makes you tap in and really figure out, how do I want to do this, and what is the right way to do this? And when you get full control over the yeses and nos of decisions, it can be a lot of stress, but it's also a lot of power and a lot of responsibility that I like to step into.
How would you describe the roofing industry, and why did you choose to stay in it?
Well, I stayed in it because of the market. So roofs are a great industry to be in. The way I describe
Why?
it is because you need a new one every 15 years.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
it. It's the rollover, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with a lot of products like windows, stuff like that, other remodeling products, and really other products in general, it's a one-time sell, right? And it's a forever sell type of thing. So your market is very limited. As a contractor, if you're around long enough, you could do a roof 3 different times for the same family.
Mm-hmm.
And so the roofing industry in Florida is kind of like the wild, wild west. And that's everyone, it seems like what I've seen in contracting in general and roofing specifically is you'll get a lot of transplants coming down here with experience from up north and think that they know roofing in Florida. And it's a lot different. It's a whole lot different. Not that I've ever roofed up north, because they have their own issues. One with the weather, but the other with the grade of the roofs up there. Down here, it's a complete different exposure. The guarantees that people make down here, and the things that they think about roofing down here is just not the same as other places. So being born and raised here, I know what lasts in Florida, and you have a lot of just like any trade, really, you've got a lot of drifters here. You've got a lot of people who just aren't doing things the right way, or just doing them the cheapest that they possibly can, because that's how they think that they should earn business. I had a good background in a company that was definitely not the cheapest. But they did a good quality product. So I always thought, hey, there's a niche here for giving the top level quality product and service, but not doing it for a crazy amount of money. And there's only a few ways to do that. And I'm trying to step into that niche like this. So that's the niche I'm trying to fill. I'm not trying to be, the next, commercial that you see on Bay News 9 every 10 minutes, right? I'm trying to be a local quality company that is going to be around for a long time, has a really top quality service that can match anybody's, but does it for a fair price.
When I've been thinking about this lately, about when it comes to marketing and stuff like that. There's really 2 types of marketing. There's like lead generation campaign, get people in a funnel sort of thing, and then there's like brand exposure. Mm-hmm. The campaign stuff is like I need to have a transaction to fill things and run a factory over here. every business needs that in one way or another.
Yeah.
Usually it's salesmen putting that into place. And then to help feed the salesman, you have a marketing doing that, right? And that takes a lot of advertising spend typically. Then you have exposure, which also takes a lot of advertising, but it's more of an umbrella. It's more really just to be popular. Those are the ones you see like every 10 minutes you see a roofer putting out a commercial, that kind of thing. Just like, how do I be as known as possible? And for your industry, that is typically a better thing because, like you said, the market is naturally there. It's just about timing. So making sure that you stay at top of mind. Yeah. So if you are saying that you are not going to be doing that, how do you plan on marketing?
Authentically. Quality content over quantity, placements of where they go, what areas we want to be in, what type of work we're known for doing, and the price point we're known for doing it at. As a company scales, that grows the need for that type of funnel marketing. Throw a big net, see how many fish come in there, right? And if that's what you want, that's great. But I think most people would agree that they really would like to work with a smaller local company, especially in something as important as roofing. I think that's coming back now. I think that there's a lot of big companies out there that people have had not great experiences with and paid top dollar for. And they're like, man, I'll never do that again. And that's the niche that I've seen. I've been on both sides of it. I've been on the big side where it's a quality product, but you're overpaying for it. And then when something bad happens, it's not, it didn't just the dollar you spent for it doesn't seem worth it. So that's the niche that I'm trying to fill is the quality marketing. And again, not trying to reach the most amount of customers, but reach the right ones and the ones that are looking for quality product at an affordable cost with a great experience. And that's that. So quality over quantity, in my opinion, because like I mentioned, I'm not here to be the massive roofer. You know what I mean? As great as that sounds, I don't need to be a billionaire. I just want to provide for my family and be able to employ some good, hardworking people and keep the product quality. And I think as you scale, especially in a trades industry, the more you scale, the higher likelihood something is not going to go right. And I've seen the price points at scale too. A lot of people think, oh, a big company, they'll get better pricing. It's not always
the opposite.
It's not always the case. It's overhead. That's one thing I've been telling people as I've started. I was like, listen, here's your price. I've got the reason it is like this is not because I'm underbidding and I'm using crap. It's because I have no overhead right now, and I'm trying to manage that. But keep in mind, as you have these other companies and they're trying to explain why their price is their price. It's not because they have higher costs than the smaller guy. It's because they have all the overhead and that you're paying for production that you're usually not really seeing. And you're also separating yourself from the center of the company as far as you got a salesperson, then you got a production manager, then you got a sales manager, then you got a GM, and then you got an owner, right? Instead of just again, it's good to have checks and balances, but again, it's about the goals of the company, and mine is to say is to grow manageably and not be overwhelmed, because that's when these owners get a little, that's when they start losing their integrity, is when they see the dollar grabs. And I've seen it time and time again, and every other contractor has seen it too, where they'll start at a certain point and then they get to a certain point, and next thing you know, it's just a shit show. It really is.
When I look at roofing, which is a very interesting industry, because like you said, it's an industry where you can easily have a lot of bad eggs. Mm-hmm. Bad apples.
Yeah.
Bad apples.
Rotten eggs.
Random bad eggs. Bad apples. That's what I should have said. And then you have just the genuine ones. I was just like, I'm here to do a good roof and stuff like that. Now, but a lot of any time you can take advantage of a market, you're gonna have bad apples, right? But when I look at roofers, it seems to be those two styles. And the only way you grow a roofing company, I feel, for the most part, like grow as in big, get a lot of sales. Mm-hmm. The only way to stay in business is to do good work. Okay. So if there's a big business that's been around a long time, you're probably going to be safe going with them, but you're also paying for their advertising spend. You're paying for their high marketing value, because if the only way you can know about them was through that TV commercial or through really heavy advertising, you're paying for that. Mm-hmm. Where if you are going to a trusted friend, or you're going to that trusted place where you're seeing a video, where you're seeing marketing, where you're seeing suggestions of a roofer, to me, that is the midline where you can get, hey, how long have you been in business? How can you prove that you're good at business? And then see, okay, they don't spend a ton of, they market because they know how to run a business. You got to market,
Definitely.
but they're not spending the millions of
Right. Yeah.
dollars. And so that's automatically where you're going to find the quality with the right price.
Right.
And it seems like that's where you're trying to fit into.
Yeah.
So what's your plan on having, what's your plan on fitting into that? Because right now you're just starting out, which is really cool, by the way. And when I say just starting out, I want to make sure that everyone understands you're just starting your brand.
Yeah. My brand.
But you've been doing this a long time.
Right.
And I know that you have a lot of attention to detail. I've seen the way you work. So the question is, how are you planning on building your company in the right way and keeping that in mind?
Well, like I mentioned, the quality of the product's always first, and
Naturally.
that starts on the job site. So having the right workers, having the right crew, and that's where I'm blessed with my guys that I have. There's no other way around that.
Was
And
that hard finding the right crew when you started your business?
It was lucky, right? It
Yeah.
was lucky of, hey, let's give these guys a shot. And I've worked with other crews too,
Yeah.
and there's other good ones out there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I have a monopoly on the quality of work,
Sure.
right? But I have good ones.
Yeah.
And there's intangibles with that too. There's communication. There's cleanliness. There's a lot of that type of stuff. So the quality of work is number one, right? Because you can grow as much as you want, but if that's there, it's like building on sand foundation. You're gonna crumble. And then two is being authentic. Sharing information that other companies don't want to share, and being transparent about what you do and how you do it and why you do it that way. That's I think those are the foundations to grow from there, and that gives you the opportunity to grow in whichever way that you want, how big as you want to. And just me personally as an owner, I want to. Early on, like starting out now, what I've been trying to do, and honestly for the last couple of years, is just see how other companies do what they do and see what I'm drawn to. And if I'm drawn to it, I would think that other people would be too. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do, is really pick what procedures and policies and media and content that I want to put out there that I like, that I think would resonate with people, and apply that to my brand. I'm not the most creative, but I do have a good vision for where I want to be, and I think that it's not trying to go for the quick money and the grabs, and I think the best way, and one of the plans I have in the background, is my partnerships with other companies. And I think a lot of trades will tell you that is like, man, once you have a partnership, let's say a GC has a partnership with a builder, why do you need to advertise a whole lot? My wife is a construction attorney, right? And she's hotshot. She represents architects, builders of tens of millions of dollar bridges, stuff like that, right? And all of those companies that have these huge contracts, I've never heard of them. You won't see them on TV or anything like that, because they have strategic partnerships. And I think that's a huge thing that I've been able to lean into and plan to lean into more going forward. And I have those. And there will be a time where I call on those. Right now, it's more about building my brand, so that when I approach those partnerships, I have more clout and more, just more to come to them with, more reputation to come to them with. And once you have that, then that allows you to not only expand because you have consistent business, but also focus on the quality of your work independent of the partnership, if that makes sense. Because the partnership with other big companies and builders and other remodeling companies, that type of thing, those can give you the consistent business that you need to keep the lights, keep the bills paid and stuff. And that way, the other part of your company can thrive on its own, and not having to, you can make concessions on price here and there. You can and just leverage the partnerships that you have to grow the way that you want to. So that's a big plan of mine going forward, is partnering with the right people, real estate agents, insurance agents, solar companies, things like that, and giving them a consistent, and that's a way that I think a lot of people are missing to help grow their business. It's not about the end consumer all the time. Sometimes you take a cut on your margins and get the partnership there, and that's really going to help kind of get you lifted off there. So
when it comes to growing your brand, your target audience, who are you aiming for?
Ideally, I'm aiming for the end consumer. I'm aiming for the homeowner that is looking for a local company to give them the same quality product and expertise as the national company that is known in the households. Right. That's the goal, is to have somebody, you know, hopefully maybe know somebody who knows me in in the community, has a friend of a friend that has used me, that has heard, that has looks online and sees nothing but great things about my company and my brand, and is known for being a local guy. I think that I'm born and raised here. I live a mile down the road from the house that I grew up in, and so making, you know, to risk sounding corny, it's like impact roofing. Like, I do want to make an impact in this industry. I do want to make an impact in people's lives. I do want to run my business the right way, and you know, expand my influence and just expand my impact on people's lives. Really, that's kind of my tagline, is, you know, let's make an impact in your life. Let's make an impact on your home, in whatever way that can be. That doesn't necessarily mean that's a roofing sale, that's a window sale that we're doing for you. That could mean the correct instruction, the ideas of other projects, the referrals I can give to you of other tradespeople. I always tell people, you know, I'm the least pushy salesman you'll ever have. Like, I'm here to offer solutions if you need them. In my industry, I'm usually not going out to homes unless they need something that I'm providing. And sometimes they don't. And I'll tell them that they don't. But if they do, they can trust me. And whatever I need to do to build the trust is you know, what I'm going to do.
It's really hard to know when someone's a good roofer, I feel, personally. Mm-hmm. And it, because on one end you're trying to make sure you get the right price, or that they use your insurance, whichever, right? But you don't know if they're going to do a good job until it's already over.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right? So what can you suggest on ways to, like, here's how you find a good roofer. Here's how you know they're a good roofer.
See how much detail they're getting into with you, you know? And that's a double-edged sword for salesmen and roofers in general, because you can overload people with information that you know, and they get turned off like, listen, I just want a good roof, right?
Yeah.
And but that's a good test. If you want to test somebody and you want to try their knowledge.
Because I feel like anybody can find a problem with a roof.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
And building urgency is part of the process, right? And that's one of the things that I've found, at least with the leads that I run, because they're all mainly inbound, right? Now, if you're going outbound selling, that's part of your process. You have to build urgency. That was part of the window process, is building urgency. Get up there. Yeah, this is the worst roof I've ever seen. If you don't do anything right now, you're going to have leaks and it's going to cause all this other damage, right? It's fear selling, right? And in certain situations, when people are like, hey, I don't really know what the situation of my roof is, and you find something that you can back up with evidence that shows them that it's bad, then that's important. But also, most of the time, like I said, the leads that I'm running, they need a new roof. It's there's nothing wrong with it. It's lasted 15 years. It's not leaking now, and you know, there's no holes in it. Their insurance is just giving them a hard time. So at that point, it's like, listen, you need a new roof. It's old. It should be done, right? But here's since you need a new roof, here's what we do that's going to separate us from others, or here's what we're going to do that's going to make sure that your roof never leaks again and it lasts as long as it possibly can.
What's the best way to present that to somebody, though?
How so? What do you mean?
So if you were to tell me, all right, so you got to do this on your roof, blah, 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 and I'm like, bro, I don't know how a roof is made. Like, I know there's beams up there. I know there's ply. I know there's shingles.
Right.
And it's all supposed to work together. And then you start naming off all the products. I'm like, okay, how do you show me or present it to show that you're doing the right job?
So what I use is basically like a slideshow. You identify a problem that they're having with the roof. You tell what people normally do, and then you tell what you do, right? And why you do it. And you kind of show them the story. That's what I do, is I show them the story of their roof, whether they want to hear it or not, right? And it's like, we start off with, you know, dumpster delivery and material delivery, right? And then my guys show up, and then they tear off the roof, and here's what it looks like, right? Here's how we protect the perimeter. Once the roof is torn off, here's the wood. Here's what we have to do with the wood and the nailing, and here's why we're replacing all that, right? After all that's done, here's the underlayment that we're doing. Here's what other people do. Here's you know, these other ways to do it, but here's the way that we do it, and here's why, right? And then here are the shingles that we do. Here's how we nail them. Here are the brands and the colors that you have to choose from. And this is what some people do. This is what we do, and this is why we do it. right? And I think when you make it as simple as that to them, the whole roof thing. My favorite homeowner is the single elder lady, maybe who is just by herself, doesn't really into very overwhelmed and intimidated, and you come in there and next thing you know, they're experts in roofs, right? Whether they wanted to be or not, and that just gives them the comfort level, right? And you're not always going to be the best price, but if you can leave the best impression, people are happy to go with that. That's that peace of mind they're paying for, especially on an investment with a roof that's going to last you 20 years. We're talking, you want to split hairs over $1,500. Well, you're going to go with the person who makes you feel comfortable for that 20-year investment, right?
Yeah.
And so it's telling them the story of how the roof is built. So that way, like whether it's me or anybody else, you can call other roofers and on what they're doing, what they're not doing. Like, oh, well, he told me that it's supposed to be done this way, and then see what they say about that, right? And so that's giving them the answers to the test, right? That's part of being transparent. If you just tell them, oh, we do a shingle roof, you get a 50-year warranty. It's the last time you ever have to do it. All that. That's just so sounds great maybe to somebody who's not trying to be inquisitive about it, but for those who really want to figure out who's doing quality work, then they should be able to explain to you the whole process. And if they don't, then they're separated from the process and they're just selling a product rather than a service.
A sales guy doesn't really understand.
Exactly. I think all the sales guys in the roofing industry need to be a part production manager, right? They need to have boots on the ground. They need to know what can happen, what will happen, because very rarely does a roof come off and go on and it was like, yep, everything went exactly to plan. There were no problems, right? Never does that happen. We need extra this happened. How do we handle that? And that's where the communication between the crew and the owner, and when you get the separation of what's being sold and then what's being installed, that's where I see a lot of companies fail. Is you get these salesmen, and it's a time old thing of salesmen versus operations, right? Salesmen just throw all this up on the wall, and then operations goes in there and tries to fulfill what they promised. Whereas right now you've got an owner operator coming into your house telling you what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and if there's an audible that needs to be run, I'm also the one that's calling the audible. So, and obviously, you're not that can't scale, but when you bring people on that you have that you train that way and they are sales/operations, you have an expert in your home, then that's really where you found like where you want to be.
Where do you believe most roofers make the mistake with their clients? Whether it's their mistake in helping them grow their own business, or their mistake in hurting the client's product.
Well, the mistake in hurting the clients is promising the world, raising their expectations and everything, and not being realistic with them, and selling them the things that they're not really getting. That's where they're hurting their clients. It's just not being honest about what they're using and what they're doing and how they're doing it. As far as like growing a business, there's right and wrong ways to grow your business. There's big companies that don't necessarily do things the right way, right? So everyone's got their own struggles with that. But I think that the focus on being transparent, and if you're doing things the right way, you should be transparent, right? There's nothing to hide if you're doing things the right way. But if you're not getting answers to something, then there's probably something that's not going on the right way in the background, and that's going to lead to a problem either for the homeowner or for the company, and usually it's for the homeowner.
Yeah, I mean, because you mentioned that the first roofer you worked for, you didn't agree with the ethics.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate more on that?
It was just misguided ownership. It was honestly, if that person had just kind of stepped back and let the guys, me and a couple buddies who were running it for him, do what we were doing, he would have been fine. But he tried to inject himself into things that he shouldn't have, and he was dealing with some personal struggles as well. So there's no need to get into that. But we all have our struggles. But it was just one of those situations where a person's values will end up showing. It was a good system run by the wrong person, right? And I think he initially started off doing it the right way, and that's how we got the framework for what we did. And a lot of it goes to the buddy of mine who brought me onto that company, really being the front man for the whole company, and leaving the ownership decisions up to the owner. And if we had just kind of kept those roles and kind of just kept that's kind of the model that I want to emulate, is kind of what we had going on there, the volume that was there. And I know the money that he was able to make with that, like, that'd be fine with me. You know what I mean? Just get out of your own way and get the
Yeah.
right, and have the right culture, and,
How are you going to try to help lead that differently?
having good values. And I think the not being attracted to the wealthy lifestyle is a big one. I want to be well off, but I also I don't have the vices that a lot of ownership has in our industry. Our industry is plagued with a lot of personal issues on the ownership sides, and not perfect at all, right? But I tend to think that I have very humble values, newfound faith in God as well. So I'm really trying to implement that into my business as well, and take those values. And I think most faith-based companies do very well. And as I grow in mine, I hope to instill those values going forward too. And I think that's going to be another thing too that helps me grow, is just having faith at doing things the right way, and expanding God's kingdom through my business is a really important thing that not a lot of our industry is doing. And if they are, it's not very authentic. And so I plan to do authenticity is really the primary goal for me as far as growing. Is I only want to grow to as authentic as I can be. And they're out there. The brands are out there. And when I see them come up, it's like, yeah, that's it. That's it right there. I'm not trying to rewrite the book, but there is a niche that I can fall into and do it authentically myself. And then that's the plan.
You kind of know how to grow or sell or market a roofing company now.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to market a roofing company as you prepare for the next 20 years, man?
Yeah, getting into new and uncomfortable positions. Jumping into every situation that I possibly can. The best way to learn is to do it, right? And I think that's the most important part. Like before, joining BNI was a stretch for me. I was pretty much told to do it, and it was like, I really don't want to market. Like I'm the sales guy, right? I want to close. That's it. Like, give me the leads. Like, don't let me find them. And then next thing you know, one of the only reasons I felt comfortable launching my business is because I was part of that networking group, right? Getting joined into, my church group was another one. Very similar kind of business leaders thing, but mainly gospel oriented. And it was like, I don't, I'm just getting into my faith. I don't really, and that's done nothing but, not even business wise, but just spiritually has helped me grow. So it's looking for those experiences and those opportunities to grow in personally and then in your business. And I think it's having a vision. I think once you have a vision, then it's just about the daily work to expand it and make it come to life, right? I don't think there's any like moment in growing your business. I think it's maybe the moment is your vision, right? And I feel like I have that. And so for me, it's really important to try to make sure I'm not sacrificing my values just for the sake of growth, right? And that's really what I fall back on, is if I'm doing things the right way, they're gonna, it's gonna pan out. It will, and it may not be as fast as other people are or expect, but it will be durable, and it won't, it won't just fall apart like I've seen other things just completely fall apart. And that's the goal, is to be here for a long time, not grow to be the fastest growing roofing company in the state of Florida. That's not the goal. The goal is to be the highest quality company. Honestly, that's what I want, is the highest quality roofing company in the state, really. Because there's nothing that I do that another company does on a roof that I don't. There's nothing. And so that's the brand that I want to get, is the, being the highest quality person that you can call, being the most honest roofer that you have. And even if you don't go with them, you're just, hey, thanks for everything. We're going a different direction, but I appreciate your attention to detail, and if I can help somebody make a good decision, then that's just as beneficial, because even if I don't get that person's business, I may get that referral, or at least I have a good reputation. And that's the best thing that you can ask for, is a good reputation.
Yeah, the truth is, for any business, doesn't matter what they're doing, roofing, marketing, it doesn't matter, right? To provide quality comes with a price. So it's really hard to be really have a lot of quality while also having a competitive price. Truly, the only way to do it is make sure you're growing. You're very careful in your growth, and to grow at the right speed. So you're not jumping and doing too many mistakes. Because when you start having to earn that profit back is when you start having to cut corners.
Mm-hmm.
When you start cutting corners, you cut quality and all that stuff. All right, so staying, you have a long journey ahead of you, but I've already seen the way you start. The way you started was right away with pretty good looking logo. Or like, I gotta say, man,
Appreciate it.
out of all the businesses that have started,
Yeah.
I've seen some really bad ones.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, really? When I saw yours, I was like, yeah,
Sweet.
That's a good one.
I
I like
appreciate that.
like this looks nice. You branded well.
Yeah.
Like
Thank you.
you're showcase and that's good because you're showcasing like I'm not just sales here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna grow quality with a service, but I'm gonna look good doing it.
Yeah.
And if you care about how you look, to me that also reflects how you
Quality.
care about your quality
Yeah.
on the product you're delivering. So
Agreed.
I think you have a lot of cool things ahead of you.
I appreciate it.
And I think that I think you are going to make an impact in the community. But that being said, one of my last questions for you is what is the impact in the community that you want to leave through the business you've started or been given, however way you want to look at it?
Well, the impact I want to make is I want to reestablish the expectation for contractors in the state of Florida and overall. Reestablish, Florida contractors, they have the worst, it's one of the worst rated industries in the country is contractors down in Florida for a myriad of reasons, right? And
Because of like the Wild West, like you were mentioning earlier.
Everyone ends up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They end up here after they failed or screwed too many people over wherever they're from, right? So they come down here and try to do the same thing, and then they go around the whole state doing it. So my overall goal is to reestablish the experience that's expected when a contractor comes into your home, and then reestablish what that is worth. Right. And if people are willing to pay more than what it's worth for, then great. But you should expect a certain level of expertise and a certain quality of product every time that someone walks into your home, because that's how I am. Like if I have someone coming in to sell me something, very rare, but when I do, it's like if you're not doing at least what I would do, then I don't really want to do business with you, and that's the expectation I want to reestablish is, this is wow, whether it's wowing somebody into man, I didn't really think that, I thought they just came out and gave a price, right? They didn't explain all this to me. That's what I want to reestablish in people's minds is what their expectation should be, and it should be should be us. It should be what impact does. The impact side of it is if I can help make an everlasting improvement to your home, that's a huge impact. And if I could save you money doing it, that's even better, right? And then even if not, if I can just make an impact in the conversations that we had and the expertise that I could provide, and it helped you make a good decision in the future, man, there's another impact that I can make, right? And then just overall referral business, just
Giver's gain.
yeah, and just on the homeowners aspect of, hey, I didn't go with him, but like let him come out and give you a quote, and that's even better than than the person that used you, because it just shows your character, right? And that's the most important. That's what I love, is whether or not I earn the business is really just making a quality connection with the homeowner and lowering their defenses and setting their expectation up for what they should expect out of their roofer.
I will say, if someone gives a referral for a company, like I didn't go with them, I wish I did, you better go with that.
Yeah, right.
It obviously the person knows what they're talking about, but
Right.
that right there speaks a big volume.
Yeah.
And I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Hey man, thanks for joining our podcast today.
Appreciate it.
Had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And dude, seriously, you're gonna make an impact. I believe you already have and already are. And it's just like a few months you just started with your license, but you've been doing this a long time, and I think you're gonna kill it, dude.
Thanks, man. Thanks.